You know, we live in a world where everything is right now. Fast food, fast internet, same-day shipping. We've gotten used to instant results, and if something takes a little longer than expected, we start to wonder if something's wrong. But here's the truth. Real growth, meaningful change, deep transformation, none of that happens overnight. If you plant a seed in the ground today, you're not going to go back tomorrow expecting a tree, are you? Of course not. That would be silly. But we do that with ourselves all the time. We start a new habit. We try to break an old one. We pray one heartfelt prayer, and then we expect to wake up completely changed. And when we don't, we beat ourselves up. We get discouraged. We say things like, I should be farther along by now, or why am I still dealing with this? And I want to tell you today, you are not behind. You are in process. Growth takes time. You may be comparing your behind-the-scenes struggle to someone else's highlight reel. You see their joy, their peace, their strength, and you wonder, why not me? But you don't see their journey. You don't know how many times they've fallen and gotten back up. You don't see the tears they've cried, the prayers they've whispered, or the nights they laid awake wondering if they were ever going to change. Stop comparing your beginning to someone else's middle. Your journey is unique and it's valuable. When a baby is learning to walk, they fall a lot. But nobody says, well, this baby fell down 3 times today. Walking clearly isn't their thing. No, we cheer them on. We celebrate every wobbly step. We don't focus on the falls, we focus on the progress. And that's exactly how God sees you. He's not disappointed in your stumbles. He's proud of your steps. He's not waiting at the finish line with a frown. He's walking with you, cheering you on, and saying, you're doing better than you think. Sometimes we get frustrated because we don't see instant results. But a lot of what's happening is underground. It's internal. Just like a seed has to take root before it sprouts, God is often doing work inside us that nobody else can see. He's strengthening your character. He's building endurance. He's teaching you to trust Him when things don't make sense. That's not wasted time. That's preparation. And preparation is part of growth. You don't go from zero to hero in one day. You don't become emotionally healthy, spiritually strong, or free from your past overnight. You might be dealing with attitudes that took years to develop, habits that became second nature, wounds that were never allowed to heal properly. So why would we expect them to vanish the moment we decide to change? Don't despise slow progress. Don't overlook the days that feel ordinary. God does some of His greatest work in the mundane, in the quiet, in the seasons that feel like nothing is happening. And let's be honest, sometimes we want quick results because we don't want to feel uncomfortable. We want the change without the challenge. But it's often the challenges that shape us. It's the tough seasons that build the deepest roots. And when you let God walk with you through those seasons, when you stay patient and consistent even when it's hard, you become stronger than you ever thought possible. You are growing even if it doesn't feel like it. You are changing even if it's slow. You are not who you used to be, and you're not yet who you're going to be. You're in the middle. And the middle is holy ground. It's where God molds you. It's where your identity is shaped. It's where your faith gets real. We need to learn how to appreciate the middle, not just the outcome. Because that's where most of life happens, let's be honest. We are way too hard on ourselves. Somewhere along the way, we picked up the idea that unless we do everything perfectly, we're not doing anything right. We think if we mess up once, it means we're a mess. That if we slip, we're a failure. But God never called us to be perfect. He called us to grow. And there is a world of difference between perfection and progress. Perfection is exhausting. It's unrealistic. It puts this heavy pressure on your back that says, you better get it all right all the time or you're not good enough. And can I just say, no one can live under that kind of weight. That's not freedom, that's bondage. That's not growth, that's guilt. And the enemy loves when you chase perfection because he knows it'll wear you out, shut you down, and steal your joy. But progress, that's something we can aim for. That's what God is looking at. Think about it. When a toddler is learning to talk, we don't get mad when they mispronounce a word. We cheer when they say their first syllable. We clap for mama and dada like it's the greatest speech ever given. Why? Because we're not expecting perfection. We're celebrating progress. And if we can do that for a child, don't you think our Heavenly Father does the same for us? Some of us have this idea that God is up there shaking his head every time we mess up. But the truth is, he sees every small step forward. He sees the moment you chose patience instead of snapping. He sees when you resisted that old habit, even if it was just for a day. He sees when you got back up after falling again. You might call it barely hanging on, but he calls it progress. We get discouraged when we're still dealing with things we thought we'd be over by now. We say, I've prayed about this, I've read the books, I've gone to church, why am I still struggling? But listen, healing isn't always instant. Change is a process. And sometimes the most important part of the journey is not arriving, it's who you become along the way. If you can look back and say, you know what, I'm not where I used to be, then you're already winning. That's growth. Perfection says, do it right or don't do it at all. But progress says, just take the next step. Perfection says, you messed up again, you're hopeless. Progress says, you messed up, but you're learning. Do you see the difference? One will keep you stuck in shame. The other will help you move forward with grace. We don't grow by pretending to be perfect. We grow by being honest. We grow by showing up even when it's messy. We grow when we stop faking it and start facing it. And some days the victory isn't in getting everything right, it's in not quitting when everything goes wrong. Let me tell you something important. God is not keeping score. He's not measuring your worth by your performance. He's looking at your heart, your desire to grow, your willingness to keep going even when it's hard. He doesn't expect you to be flawless. He just wants you to be faithful. He's not looking for perfection. He's looking for surrender. When we embrace progress over perfection, we give ourselves permission to be human. We stop hiding. We stop pretending. We start showing up with our real selves, flaws, fears, failures, and all. And we let God do the work only he can do. It's not about how fast you're going. It's about the direction. Are you moving forward? Then you're doing just fine. And even if it's 1 inch at a time, forward is still forward. We've gotten so used to rushing everything that we start to believe if something isn't happening fast, then it must not be happening at all. We think if it's not moving on our schedule, we must be doing something wrong. But I've learned something over the years. God is never in a hurry, and he's never late. He doesn't rush things just because we're impatient. He doesn't speed up his process because we're uncomfortable. His timing is always perfect, even if it makes us wait longer than we want to. We live in a microwave world, but we serve a slow-cooking God. He's more interested in building strength in you than giving you quick success. He's more concerned about your character than your comfort. And here's the thing. If God is not worried about your timeline, maybe you don't need to be either. You're not behind, you're not failing, you're just learning to walk at God's pace. Some of us are so busy trying to force things to happen that we end up stepping ahead of God. And when you do that, you carry burdens you were never meant to carry. You try to make things work in your own strength, and that kind of striving will wear you out. It'll steal your peace, cloud your mind, and make you question everything. But when you slow down and say, okay, God, your will, your way, your timing, that's where peace lives. That's where clarity starts to come. That's where the pressure lifts because you realize you don't have to figure everything out. You just have to trust the one who already has. You might be waiting for a breakthrough, waiting for healing, waiting for that door to open. And you're looking around like, Lord, did you forget about me? But he hasn't. God doesn't forget, and he doesn't ignore. He's not pacing around in heaven trying to come up with a plan B. He's working behind the scenes in ways you can't see, preparing things, protecting you from things, developing something deeper in you than you'd ever get from a shortcut. Sometimes we think delays mean denial, but in God's kingdom, a delay might just mean development. He's stretching your faith, teaching you how to rely on him and not your own understanding. And if we let him work in us during the waiting, we'll come out stronger than we ever imagined. Do you remember how long it took Moses to step into his calling? 40 years. Joseph went through betrayal, slavery, prison. It was years before the dream God gave him came to pass. David was anointed king as a teenager, but waited years through battles, betrayal, and hardship before he sat on the throne. Jesus himself didn't start his public ministry until he was 30. If the Son of God waited, if kings and prophets had to wait, why do we think we shouldn't have to? What we call a delay, God calls preparation. Because when you're ready for the promise and the promise is ready for you, nothing can stop it. But if it comes too soon, it can crush you. So God, in his wisdom, holds some things back, not to punish you, but to protect you, not to frustrate you, but to form you. And here's the challenge. Can you trust him when there's no visible progress? Can you believe he's working when nothing seems to be changing? That's where real faith is built. That's where intimacy with God deepens. Not just in the miracles, but in the mundane. Not just in the answers, but in the waiting rooms of life. Sometimes you're going to feel like everyone else is getting ahead, like everyone else is getting blessed, and you're still stuck. That's when you've got to stop looking side to side and fix your eyes back on him. Because he's not moved by the clock on your wall or the calendar on your phone. His timing is divine, strategic, intentional, and he hasn't forgotten you. He's just not in a rush, because what he's building in you is meant to last. Let's just go ahead and say it. You're going to mess up sometimes. We all do. We say the wrong thing. We react out of emotion. We go back to a habit we thought we were done with. And in that moment, the enemy loves to whisper, see, you'll never get it right. You've ruined it. You've gone too far this time. But let me tell you something loud and clear. Your mistakes do not disqualify you. Not from God's love, not from your purpose, not from growing, healing, or becoming who you were created to be. We treat failure like a full stop, like it's the end of the sentence. But in God's eyes, it's just a comma, a pause, a moment to learn something, a place to stop and say, okay, that didn't go well. Now what can I learn from it? God never called perfect people. He called willing people. He called teachable people. He called people who fell flat on their face and still got back up. People like you and me. Think about Peter, one of Jesus' closest disciples. This man walked on water, literally, and still denied even knowing Jesus 3 times when things got tough. That wasn't a small mistake. That was a deep failure. But Jesus didn't cut him off. He didn't say, well, Peter, that's it for you. No. After the resurrection, Jesus went looking for him. He restored him, and Peter went on to be one of the boldest voices in the early church. Why? Because God is in the business of restoring broken people, not discarding them. Now, the world might not be so kind. People love to remind you of your failures. They'll bring up your past like it's your permanent label. But God doesn't label you by your lowest moment. He doesn't define you by what you did. He defines you by what Jesus did for you. Grace rewrites the story. Mercy gives you a clean page. And every time you fall, God is right there saying, let's try again. I'm not finished with you. Mistakes are part of learning. Babies don't learn to walk without falling. Artists don't create masterpieces without messing up a few canvases. Growth is messy. But mess doesn't mean failure. It means you're trying. It means you're stretching. It means you're not giving up. And that's what matters. But here's the thing. We have to stop letting shame sit in the driver's seat. Shame says, I am the mistake. But conviction says, I made a mistake and I can learn from it. God never uses shame to bring you closer to him. That voice that tells you to hide, to quit, to isolate yourself, that's not from him. The Holy Spirit convicts, yes, but he always does it with a hand outstretched. He says, come on, let's deal with this together. You're not alone. We need to stop disqualifying ourselves from blessings God still wants to give us. Stop saying, I don't deserve it. Of course you don't. None of us do. That's why it's called grace. It's a gift. You don't earn it by being perfect. You receive it by being humble, by admitting you need it, by showing up messy, real, and ready to be changed. Sometimes your greatest ministry will come out of your biggest mistake, the very area where you struggled, where you thought you'd never overcome. That might be the place God uses you to help someone else, because you get it. You understand the pain, the process, the comeback. And people don't need perfect. They need real. They need someone who's been there and come through it with scars and wisdom and hope. When you own your story, even the messy parts, it takes the power away from shame. You begin to walk in freedom. And you realize that failure isn't your identity. It's just a chapter, not the whole book. You are not too far gone. You are not broken beyond repair. You are not disqualified from your purpose just because you stumbled. God still calls you, still loves you, still chooses you. Let me ask you something. If your best friend came to you discouraged, hurting, or struggling to get it right, what would you say? Would you look at her and say, wow, you really blew it again. You're never going to change. You're just a mess. Of course not. You'd never speak to someone you love like that. You'd be kind. You'd be gentle. You'd remind her of her worth, her potential, and her progress. You'd say, it's okay. You're doing better than you think. Don't give up. So why is it so easy to show compassion to everyone but ourselves? Most of us have an inner critic that is loud, relentless, and downright cruel. We rehearse our failures over and over. We magnify our flaws. We talk to ourselves in ways we'd never talk to another person, and certainly not someone we love. But here's the thing. You are listening to yourself all day long. And the way you speak to yourself shapes your thoughts, your emotions, your identity, and your decisions. That voice inside becomes the lens you see yourself through. And if that lens is always harsh and critical, it's going to block the truth of who you really are. You don't need to flatter yourself. You don't need to pretend everything is fine when it isn't. But you do need to start talking to yourself with the same grace and truth that God talks to you with. The same kindness you would extend to someone else who's struggling, that belongs to you too. When you mess up, instead of saying, I always do this, I never get it right, what if you said, I made a mistake, but I'm learning, I'm growing, this doesn't define me? What if you replaced, I'm such a failure with, this was a setback, but I've come too far to stop now? That shift might seem small, but it's powerful. It's not just positive thinking, it's speaking life. And life-giving words create space for healing. There's a difference between being honest with yourself and being brutal. Honesty says, that attitude wasn't right, I need to work on that. Brutality says, you're terrible, you'll never change. One leads to growth, the other leads to shame. And God never uses shame to transform us. He draws us with love, not condemnation. He corrects because he cares, not because he wants to crush us. Think about what Scripture says. Death and life are in the power of the tongue. That includes the tongue you use when no one else is around, the one you use on yourself. Some of us are tired and discouraged not because of what others say to us, but because of what we're constantly saying to ourselves. You can't fill your spirit with negative, self-defeating words and expect to feel strong, secure, and motivated. There's power in choosing a new narrative, not one that denies reality, but one that invites grace into it. You can look at your mess and still speak hope. You can see the struggle and still speak strength. You can admit where you are without abandoning where you're going. And let me just say this, you don't have to wait until you feel worthy to start speaking kindly to yourself. Start anyway, even when it feels awkward, even when you're not sure you believe it yet. Speak truth over yourself until your heart starts to catch up. Say things like, I'm a work in progress. God's not done with me. I'm learning to love myself the way he loves me. Because you can't live a victorious life with a defeated mindset. And it's not pride, it's agreement. Agreement with what God already says about you. Agreement with your potential. Agreement with your healing. You're not being arrogant when you speak kindly to yourself. You're being obedient to the truth of your worth. And one of the biggest traps we fall into is the comparison trap. We look at someone else's highlight reel and start measuring our behind the scenes. We see their success, their confidence, their blessings, their timeline, and we start to question everything about our own. Why am I not there yet? Why does it seem so easy for them? What am I doing wrong? But let me tell you something that'll set you free if you really let it sink in. Your journey is your own. It's not supposed to look like anyone else's. It's not supposed to move at the same pace or follow the same path. God wrote your story for you. And it's beautiful, even if it's unfolding slower than you expected. You don't need to copy anyone else's blueprint. What worked for them might not be what you need. The way God develops you is tailor-made. He knows what you need when you need it and how you'll grow best. That's why comparison is so dangerous. It convinces you that you're behind when really you're just on a different route. You're not late. You're on schedule. You're not broken. You're being built. The world loves to measure everything by age, status, achievement, and outward appearance. But God isn't looking at any of that. He's working on the inside of you. He's growing your roots before your branches. And some of the strongest people you'll ever meet are the ones who had to take the long road, the quiet road, the road that didn't come with applause or approval. And maybe that's your story right now. Maybe no one sees what you're going through. Maybe your process isn't visible, but that doesn't mean it's not valuable. Just because someone else's season looks brighter doesn't mean yours is dark. It just means you're in a different part of the process. You might be in the middle of the lesson while they're showing the results. You might be healing while they're celebrating. And you know what? That's okay. One person's victory doesn't cancel out your progress. Their blessing isn't a threat to yours. God doesn't run out of goodness. There's more than enough room at the table for what He's doing in your life. We've got to stop letting comparison steal our confidence. Stop letting it rob your joy, your peace, your focus. When you constantly look sideways, you'll always feel off balance. But when you fix your eyes forward and trust the pace God has you on, you'll find strength to keep going. And here's what's amazing. When you embrace your own journey, you'll start to celebrate others instead of competing with them. You'll stop resenting where you are and start respecting what it's producing in you. Sometimes the very thing that frustrates you about your journey is what God is using to shape you. That long season of waiting, He's building patience. That closed door, He's redirecting you to something better. That detour, it's not wasted, it's preparation. There are things you're learning in this season that you'll need for the next one. And if you try to skip the process, you'll miss the strength that comes with it. And let's not forget, half the time, we don't even know the full story of the people we compare ourselves to. We see the fruit, but we don't see the roots. We see the blessing, but we don't know the battles they had to fight to get there. That's why we can't judge our story based on someone else's chapter. You don't know what they walked through. You don't know how long they waited. You don't know what God had to do in them first. The truth is, your story matters, even the messy parts, especially the messy parts, because that's where real growth happens. That's where depth is formed. That's where your relationship with God goes beyond surface level. He's not just writing a quick success story. He's crafting something deep, lasting, and personal. And that can't be rushed or replicated. You're not meant to blend in. You're meant to be uniquely you. There's purpose in every step, even the ones that feel slow or strange or silent.